Alright, well, welcome to another live stream. We're going to continue to do the modeling for this cyber girl character. She still doesn't have a name, so we need to find one soon. Um, I don't know, I was thinking so many different ideas, but I want to put out a voting, thing so that you can vote on the name that she will probably inherit. So, anyways, let's review this. So, where are we right now? I have already done most of the UV unwrapping at this point, and as you can see, the skirt is the one piece of cloth that we're working right now, and we're also going to be working the rest of the body. It's almost finished. She also has a jacket, as you can see right here, and everything is ready to get the textures. But this character is different than the other ones because this one is going to be an animated character for Unreal Engine. So yeah, you will be able to manipulate her, jump, double jump, just the basic stuff. Because I have received a lot of requests, Mr. Schiller, why don't you post a character to Unreal Engine? Like, we want to see how to port the things that we do in shading from Blender to Unreal. So that's what we're going to be doing. And also, this character has been invited to be part of a very amazing launch in the next days for a very important URL. I hopefully will finish the character by then. So yeah, let's continue the journey. So let's hide this thing. And this is going to be a very quiet stream. Rather, it's just I wanted to show what I do, how I figured things out, because I really think that it's something important that you may be able to just watch and learn, because the 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 idea with the live streams that I'm doing right now is just so that you can get familiarized with your tools inside Blender, and also how you can figure things with the UI, you know, um, so that you can also replicate this kind of workflows on your own. I'm listening to computer audio on the second channel though. And hopefully you will see this in the stream, but not listen to the audio because obviously, copyright stuff. But yeah, so S, X, and then scale. I'm scaling this into kind of not zero really, but just dragging my mouse so I can um, do this proportionately. You can roll the middle mouse wheel like I'm doing right here, so you can control how much it's going to rotate. So at the moment, what I want is to put this entire skirt in a kind of a square pattern, so it will be easier for me to paint. Now, I was talking with another artist whose name is Matthew. Oh gosh, I forget his last name. Anyways, he's a very great coder, and he provided me an add-on to paint, like draw a square, and then the square will fill itself. And that fill paint tool in the UV texturing tools is just an amazing help to accelerate the workflow. Another thing I wanted to mention before you go, in case that you're wondering what this live stream is all about, I wanted to mention the following. I have been doing tests in a very high resolution monitor, using vertex paint and also texture paint tools from Blender. And the sad news is that we are not getting the full advantage on texture painting inside Blender, if we can say it that way. I'm going to say it nicely because Blender is constantly developing new tools and new things. But yeah, it's not optimal. The sub-pixel blurring, it's not working. I mean, it works as intended, but it will not benefit your NPR workflow. And that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to put out that if you want to do NPR with clean pixels, as you have seen from the Guilty Gear, you should not use Blender. Use other software. In my particular case, I use 3D Coat. You may use Photoshop, the newest versions rather. But yeah, that's the issue. So I- I'm replying to all of the artists who have asked me, Mr. Schiller, how do we paint? How do we paint, um, you know, optimally like Guilty Gear? The textures. How do we paint the textures optimally, just like Guilty Gear? And SX0. I'm just selecting this with Control SX0. Um, and yeah, I was figuring out a way to do that better inside Blender, but it just blurs at sub-pixel level. Now, I guess this is done natively because I have seen that the image node has a, how do you call this? A parameter so that you can decide if you want to blur the subpixel or just leave it, sharp, as a sharp image. And it happens so that the default just blurs the subpixel. So that's a problem. Because if you want to draw a line, you're going to get a black line here. I will demonstrate this later on in the stream. But if you do a black line, a solid black line, you will get a little bit of blur. And that is not optimal. That's why everything I have been doing up to this point has been a little bit blurry. I was about to give myself up, to give up in this situation because I was wondering, there has to be a way to do this as optimal as we can. And yeah, that's the only issue at this point, because I don't know if probably the next Blender will fix this, or not really fix. It's not a problem. It's just that it by default it blurs your image textures that you paint inside Blender. So if you have the chance to try other tools, please do so. Like, there's nothing that we can do at this point. When you read the image, please bear this in mind. It's not the same that when you paint the image inside Blender. SY0. S for scaling, GY, and shift to move this in a very straight line. SY0, GY, shift, and pull up. And you can see there as a result over here. So it's taking its time. Also, it's worth mentioning that I don't do this for the entire things in the UV, except for the parts that I want to quickly draw the line. Okay, so enough talk, let's get this to work. Now bear in mind that we're only texturing like the half of the skirt. Okay? So, because we're still having the mirror applied. So that's an important thing to notice because we're going to fix some things later on. Welcome to the chat. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them. Hi, Nick. Thank you for coming to the stream. Can you explain again why you need to straighten the UVs? I heard you explain about a lot about explain about the line. I don't quite get it. Is it the inner line like arc system? Yes. For two reasons. I think I did that on the hair. Let me see if I can show you right now because I was expecting that question, and let me see if I have it available here. Yeah, but not this part. Maybe I think it was this one. Yeah, this one. Okay, so the advantage of doing this is that it doesn't matter what kind of a scale of the texture you have. You may have a 1024 by 1024 texture or a 4K texture. It doesn't matter. When you draw a straight line either vertically or horizontally, you are going to get this result. Okay, very, very clean lines. It doesn't matter if you're watching it from afar. Okay, you can see it's clean, it's sharp, it's not pixelated or jagged. What we try to do is to avoid jagginess. Like, you know, how the textures distort, like over here, this far, for example, your texture will be distorted at some point. If you get too close, for example, you will start seeing dented pixels. Dented refers to big box squares, and that's why. Let me see if I can switch this so you can see it with the original. With the original, here we go. Front line. Oh no, not this one. This one. So that's why I draw this, straight lines. So whenever I put my UV textures on this, it's going to follow a very straight line without any kind of distortion. See this? It's pixel perfect. And I was talking about earlier about Blender not being able to do this. I did this on Photoshop because Blender, what it will do is to blur the subpixels between this color and this color, and your line, will not get bad, but it will not be as sharp as if you were doing this in Photoshop. That's why I do this. So yeah, you get this kind of result by aligning this. So I'm going to be doing that with the skirt. Actually, you came in a quite good time, Nick, because I'm going to be doing this on the skirt. So you will see this process from zero, and also it will get recorded for everyone else to watch. So let's continue with the skirt. Let's get this straightened as much as we can. The tool, by the way, that I usually use is called UV Squares. You can Google this, and there's a GitHub repository that you can get, or you can support the artist in Blender Market by buying this UV Squares add-on. So the way it works, I have explained this in other videos, is that you select this face selection. Okay, I'm going to select this one right here, and then I'm going to let's say, for example, let me distort it just a little bit so you can see the effect in action. So I'm going to be distorting this just a tad. Okay, so let's say that you have this really horrible square, but then you select the face, select it like this, then switch to either island mode, and you can select the entire thing and fix it, but I'm going to be using just a section for now. So step number 1, select your square. Step number 2, press to grid by shape, which the shortcut is Alt E, so you can press Alt E anytime and it will fix it automatically. Let me show you. Alt E, and now we have a square. From this selected square, I want to take the opportunity to select all of these other squares, for example, like this. Well, these are perfect aligned squares, but let's just pretend that they are not. So I'll press Alt E, and they all will, make themselves a square in a proportionate manner. Okay, so that's what they do. And if this had not this kind of cuts, it would also do its job. Let me show you. Select this face, Alt E, select the entire island, Alt E, and now it's perfectly squared. See, but we have overlapping UVs, and this is not this is not what we want. And this overlapping UVs happens because there are triangles, which is why I prefer to do this, you know, individually. On the hair strands, it was different because it was created from a parametric curve. Just a regular curve converted into mesh. So yeah, you can imagine now that the skirt. Let me switch from material to solid view so you can see the idea clearly. Material. Here we go. So the idea here is not that I go, perpendicular or transversal, taking the line tool in texture paint, but rather that I do it vertically. Look how easy it's going to be. Let me just show you which edge this one is. Maybe selecting the faces. Yeah, here we go. It's this one over here. So yeah, there you have it. So it is easier for me to straighten this line and then do a straight line down, and I'm going to get a perfect sharp black line once I get to this part. And now that I know which one it is, I'm going to take special care and straighten this up by selecting everything with Control. First select this one, then Control left click on this one. It's going to select the entire chain. SX0 in the numpad, enter in the numpad, GX, and then bring this back. Again, select this here, Control left click over here, press S to scale, press X to have it in the X axis, horizontally, press 0, press enter in the numpad as well, and now you have the straight line there. So maybe we can adjust this a little bit over here. So yeah, that's the idea. The more like straight that you can get there, the better it is at the time of painting. Like for example, this one is not correctly aligned. So SX0, now it's aligned. And the second objective to do this is to optimize the space. I'm working my entire texture in a 4K image size. Okay, this has a 4K 4096 by 4096 pixels, and if I get this correctly aligned and squared, I can resize it however I want, and we are going to retain a crisp color. We're going to retain a crisp line, and we're going to retain details even though the texture is small. I'm sorry, the UV space for this skirt is going to be small, but it will work. Why? Because we have optimized the way it's going to be represented on the screen, and that's why we tend to make this as squarish as possible using this resize method for X and Y, so that you can see all the UV textures in just a second. Let me just finish this so you can see it. Thank you for your patience, Nick, and if you have another question, don't hesitate to ask. This is the time. I'll be streaming for around 2 hours or so, because I need to kind of record the process while I'm working on this. Otherwise, people then say, you did not do that. That was easy, and weird things like that. I never show this kind of process because it takes a lot of time, and I think people does not have the patience to endure it. But that's it. If I knew that people would really like this kind of content, I would post this kind of regularly. But that's not the case. So here we can see all the skirt folds. I mean, probably I should yeah, so the triangles, as much as you can. Try, you know, to. Okay. All right. I guess that's sharp enough. Yeah, in as much as possible, try to avoid this, because the triangles are going to be distorting the textures at this point. But it doesn't matter because this is what we wanted. So now I want to identify how thick is the last line. Okay, it's very thick, and that's not what we want, because we want to, oh, see, there's a triangle here that it's most likely, yeah, corresponding to this one. So this is the line that I'm mostly interested in, because I'll do it right now. Let me just show you. For this, let me see if I can. Yeah, let's create a new image. We're going to call this 4096. 4096. Also, channel packing is another thing I have already shown in my previous videos, but this is a great opportunity to show also how the different image maps are created. So right now we're going to create one that's called cyber okay, red hood. You can see up here it says diffuse. I'm going to name this lines, and we have a brand new texture map, and we need to add it to the unique material I have. I only have one material. So let's save this image, by the way, because in order to make it active we need to save it. No compression, RGB, 8-bit colors, that's it. Alright, so Shift A, image, and from the drop down I want to select this one, red hood lines, and we're going to connect our UV mapping directly here, and from there we're going to go directly to the material, so you can see here in the viewport what we're going to do. I'm in texture mode right now. You said about line blurry in texture mode, image mode. I think you can get straight line without anti-aliasing by disabling the anti-aliasing in advanced tab and change fall off to flat. That's N. I don't see it. Wait, image editor, here we go. Tool, anti-aliasing. Wow, okay. Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, we can test that right now. Let's go to the UV editor and let me select everything from her. So I'm going to select the boots, the plates here. This one I remember I textured also. This one I remember I textured, and items here, as well as this, also this thing too, also the shoulder plates, the straps. I don't think I'm getting. Oh, the jacket, here it is. Whoops. No, the jacket. Alright. There we go. So as you can see, most of the things that she has, I have already straightened in everything I could done. I could do a lot more, but it takes time. Just this skirt alone, and this just the half of the skirt has taken a lot of time. So yeah, like I mentioned before, the advantage of this is like you can pack them really close and use one single black line for the limit of this one and also this one. I mean, packing is another art of itself. It doesn't require any like. Alright, you mentioned anti-aliasing, so let's put it to the test. This is a good scenario to not anti-alias. Not anti-alias, whatever. There it is. Okay. Okay, so that's the skirt. And We already activated the option that you mentioned. Let's go to image editor. Let's select paint. Let's make sure that everything is there. Advanced. Okay, no anti-aliasing. So let's see how straight of a line without sub-pixel blurring we can work this with. E to change the, and I mentioned I wanted this line down here, so let's go over. Oops, by the way, let me just set up the texture paint space. Texture paint, alright. And yes, we're in side right hood lines because that's what we want to paint. So we're going to go back here. I don't know why you need to have the selection active in order for this to work well with other tools as the um, relaxing and stuff from the UV. Let me just magnify this so we can see. This is another thing I wanted to express to the developers. Like, we cannot see the cursor if we're working on the white background. But let's adjust this. Not 65. Let's use, I don't know, probably around 4. And let's draw the line. Moment of truth. Oh, sorry to tell you, but we can see sub-pixels. See this? If you go back into this live stream when it's finished, you will see that I presented the line specifically clear. It's just pure black, and this is a problem for. Whoops! I cannot undo. Let's reload then. Reload. Okay. So yeah, like I mentioned before, it's a problem. Have you tried to change the fall off? Yeah, good call. Let's try that. Fall off. Here we go. Custom, not custom. Let's go with constant. Maybe that's the key thing. Here we go. That's whoops. Yep. Definitely that was the thing. So E line. Let's go from here all the way over here. Yippee! There we go. You're totally right. Thank you, Nick. That was the issue. To get non-blurred sub-pixel lines. So if you're watching up to this point in the live stream after it has been created, I repent from everything I said. Still, this is a good thing to have in mind. You know, as Nick Faisal suggested, you need to adjust the fall off, and we adjusted it to constant, and also uncheck the anti-aliasing. So now you can paint very sharp stuff. So let's go back here. Let's isolate the skirt because that's the point that we wanted to check. And let me switch this off. Okay, so you can see now that it doesn't matter from the distance that you're watching this, you will not get jagged pixelated lines. Whoops, sorry, my bad. Again, but this is due because now in the image node we need to switch this from linear to, I think it's cubic. No, I think it's closest. Here we go, closest. That's the one that we should use if you want your sharp lines not only at the time of texture painting but also at the time of displaying. Now bear in mind that this is all Blender thing. When we export this to Unreal Engine, we should select similar results. If you want to, you know, have your textures be as sharp as possible, because that's the point of taking the time to create all of these UVs, to have as sharp as possible your lines. Look at this. It's perfect. It's a clean line. It's a sharp line. Very awesome. For some reason, if you undo, well, probably not right now because I already did this, but let me try this by switching colors on texture paint, press X, and let's redraw this to erase it. Yeah, it worked. So now we're watching even the smallest line drawn, and you can still see that it is perfectly sharp. And this is what we were looking for from the beginning. You can see that because I have bloom active, but if I switch it off, it's a perfect pitch black line. You can repeat this process for all of the other parts of the skirt. And we mentioned that we wanted to, the plates. We wanted to know what happens when we draw sharp lines in the plate. So let's just find out again which line was this. Okay, now we can see it, and it's this line. So um, this one, yeah, this is that side. So what we're going to do right now is to draw a very sharp line, from here all the way down here. In my previous videos, I have also mentioned that when we draw anime, we cannot make thick lines. If we draw thick lines, let me cross over to texture paint. My radius is set to 4 and it was still thick. Let's say that I'm going to be using, whoops, not 100, 10 radius pixel. Now that's just too much. I mean, this texture is gigantic. No, not 6. Let's go to 4. Now let's say that I draw this line right there. Please notice how thick this thing is going to be. Whoops, sorry, X. Since my line is, wiggling left and right, and I don't even know how to do a straight line, you can press, I think it's Y? No, there's a way to lock, not Shift, not, there we go, Alt. If you press Alt, you're going to get your straight line. So that's another advantage when you're working in Blender. If you press Alt, you're going to get straight lines now. And there it is. That's the line. That's the line. And as you can see, I was able to draw a perpendicular line. Not because I drew it perpendicular in the texture, but because we moved the points around. Let me just switch this back. Press E. Let's go to space. I'm going to be fixing this from here. We already know what it is and how to do it, but I just thought useful to present to you that. And just like that, you have a perfect straight non-jagged perpendicular line. Look at that. And that is the purpose for the entire thing. Now when we are working on our textures, we are kind of layering our maps. Right now I'm not layering, or rather I'm not creating the line maps, the line art. I can save this though, so that our efforts are worth the time that you were here, that you all are here. But I'm going to be dedicating this entire layer map later, because I need to define, just as we need to define the size for each of the sections in the character, we also need to define how much details we want in each of those sections. Like in the clothes here, I think they have like around 60% of the texture space, because I really want details for the jacket and also for some of the other parts. So now that you know how this works, we can go back to our regular map. So I'm going to be plugging this back, switching this here to this edit mode, and we have our skirt ready. And as long as we can do this workflow, we are able to really compress or create bitmaps or textures that are really small, but they are really sharp. And again, this is only to optimize the space. If you are not minding about, optimizing things, at least for game engines, then don't worry about this. Just proceed to unwrap as you would normally do, and later on just export it in 1 or 2 maps. Now it is worth mentioning that at least on Unity, because this is the first time I'll be doing this on Unreal. Let me just say that Unreal is kind of like very powerful, but you have to start from scratch for some things. I was checking out some toon shaders. They really show you how to do all of this stuff, but I'll just be doing it because I think people need to do their first like approach or concept ideas that are not really explained in other channels. Like I see, like do this, do that, but they don't tell you what's the reasoning behind that setup, that blueprint. And there are a few people who really do. I have been following some creators for Unreal Engine, and they really do take their time to explain to you why they decide or why do they choose the way they do with their nodes, with their blueprints, to do such creations. And it's really useful to see how they think, how they approach the problem, and what they do to solve it. Okay, so far we have texture only the middle section of this character, and we're still left with the face, the body, the legs, this part, and also the propulsors. So I'll keep doing that into this section. This section always belongs to the face. The way I tend to think about this is like this kind of sections. Okay, this is what is going through my mind whenever I'm working on a 4K map. Oops, sorry. Not that. Maybe just a little bit more, probably around here. I'm trying to pixel myself. I'm sorry. I'm trying to picture myself working in 6 1K by 1K textures. You know? So this one always belongs to the face just because I wanted to. You can place your face whatever you want. You can place them right here. This section over here, it's always for clothes. I always do that. Clothes. Sorry, here we go. This is always for boots or shoes. Okay, so all this section, boots or shoes. And beside the face, here we have like body, come on. Okay, I think you get the idea. Body, gosh, it's such a problem to do this with the mouse. So yeah, the face, and I'm doing a separate map for front hair and a separate map for back hair. So that's another thing. And just so that you don't die of boredom, let me just show you another thing I have been doing, which is the hair. Let's render out something so we can take a time out of this. So let's go to materials, hide this thing just for a second, and switch to the image editor to the render result. Whoops. Whoops. Okay, so this is my render view without me, subdividing or anything. Because at the moment, as I mentioned before, I'm trying to prepare this character to send her to Unreal Engine 5. And at this point, there's a lot of hair right now. There's a lot of hair strands. I think this is around, yeah, look at that. 84K triangles is too much, so I still need to optimize this hair, but it has been already UV'd, so that's not going to be a problem. But what I want to say is that the entire character is going to double whatever the actual triangle count is going to be, because I'm going to be a method that we have also used here in Blender for the outlines, which is the inverted cull method, and that literally doubles the amount of polygons on screen. I also have an environment ready for this character, but I just really want to finish her first and then go for the rest of the character. So okay, let's continue. Let's go. Let's do this part. This is going to be a really interesting anatomical part to unwrap on the UVs because it's going to take much of the section for the UV space. Mr. Schiller, why don't you just UDIM everything? Well, just like I mentioned before, it's because I don't want this to take a lot of time loading on Unreal Engine. Of course, you will also optimize. Um, Press U and then U again to unwrap so we can see the problems. Not really the problems, but how we're going to cut this. And just to end the previous subject, so we need to optimize it for a game engine so that it will play fast, will not delay while it's loading and stuff. So let me just plan this. Now she has a cybernetic arm. We can take advantage of that. Let's cut the cybernetic arm here. Press E, mark seam. And I wanna unwrap this. I wanna see the torso, but I don't wanna see this. So let's just take this from here to here as if it was a shirt seam. By the way, this is the way I learned how to unwrap stuff when I was studying on my master's 3D. The teacher told us something that I will never forget. He said, go to your room, to your closet, take out a sweater that you have, any sweater, and then start really looking at the seams, the couture seams on your sweater, and that's how you will learn how to unwrap. It took a lot of trial and error, but I finally figured it out, and I was really happy that I could follow his advice because up until this day, that's the way I unwrap stuff. So the more hidden your line is to unwrap something, the better. And yeah, I took this from my sweater. I had one sweater I remember that day going home and, really, really taking care of the seams like around the neck, around the shoulders. And yeah, it totally worked. Hey Cami, thank you for coming to the stream. There's a lot of important stuff that we previously mentioned, so that you don't want to miss that after the stream is over. The first 15 minutes, we did some setups. So now we have the torso here. We're talking about how to straighten everything. This is from the arm, and I think the cut it's right here, if I'm not mistaken. By the way, let's save. I have not saved. Yeah, this is the cut area. So this is the shoulder. And this is the mid section of the arm. So we're still trying to figure how we're going to open this thing. But let's continue. I hope I'm not boring you guys with my story times from my previous studies. That was a lot of years ago. Here we go. Enter, mark seam, Control E, mark seam. And let's figure this cut is going to be somewhere around. Why not? Let's make it over here. Just because. This seems more a reasonable cut. Mark seam. So if I grab this again. Oh, by the way, this is something I don't see many people use. If you're in the sync, you need to unsync this. Press A on the viewport to select everything. And now you're back into individual sections. So I'll select this island and then I'll come to UV and then pin it. Pin it means that it's going to get stuck. It's not going to move. I'm going to select this other island because I'm on island selection, and then I'm going to press P. And as you can see, the points really get kind of a little bit bigger. So now they are pinned. But since I recently cut this thing and then I want to unwrap it, press U and then U again, you can see that all of my pinned islands did not move. And that's exactly what we wanted. And this island that you see right here, this is the hand. So right now we have the arm plus the forearm. Let me just turn this around. RX 90, RX minus 90, enter on the numpad. And I want to place this over here just because. Mr. Schiller, why didn't you do one single section for the entire thing? No, because I want to straighten them and then I will join them. Or if I'm lazy enough, I'll just leave it right there. Cami asks, I just started on Blender and you find in my tendencies. Oh, sure thing. This channel is entirely dedicated to creating anime content in Blender, and we're doing this month a special setup so that we can port our characters into Unreal Engine, because a lot of people have asked me how to do that, like how to port my character from Blender to Unreal Engine, and I was, thinking maybe this is a good time to do that kind of stream. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So let me just navigate here because I really modeled this part. The middle section is here. Yep. Here we go. What we want to do. Okay, let me just go here. We wanna, if you had a glove, if you're in a cold country, you probably have seen the seams that your gloves have. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm cutting through the seams of the glove. It's very irregular, so that's why you can see this. Okay, so whenever I hit this kind of, difficult spaces, I just go Control E, mark seam, and continue from there in transparent mode. Mr. Schiller, I really get dizzy whenever I see this many lines. Isn't there any other way to do this? Yes, you can hide, press H. Like, for example, if I select this on filter, face filter, select this, press H, you're gonna hide it. You did not delete it. You're gonna hide it. And if you want to unhide it, press Alt H, and it will come back. So this is how you can kind of mask out polygons that occlude your view. You want to hide the rest of the hand, and, or the rest of the fingers. Work on the area that you're interested in, and then press Alt H to unhide them all. Again, I'm doing this just so that YouTube can show everyone that I did this character. In reality, I do not present any of this kind of workflows because I don't think everyone will be interested in this. But since we're live, you can always ask your questions in the chat, and I'll be replying them. When did you first start in Blender? Okay, so it's an interesting story because I'm a professional VFX and 3D animator. I have been in the industry for more than 20 years. Back when I started in Softimage. Why did I not choose Maya? I don't know. Well, actually, I do know. It was the UI. Back when I started, Maya was owned by Alias, a software company. And the UI was so primitive, I thought, how could a powerful program software? How could a powerful software look like this? And it kind of was of disbelief. uh, yeah, I did not think it was going to be something that they will change anytime soon. And that kind of discouraged me. But then I saw Softimage Avid. At the time, Softimage was owned by Avid, and it was a company that was dedicated to creating video editing software. And the interface for that was just outstanding. I really loved it, and I said, well, if a software takes care of the user interface, it's because it is really important for them. And yeah, so after Softimage went with the end of line, that means the end of the development for the software in 2015, and that was exactly the year that the GTC conference about Guilty Gear was out, and they told the entire world, hey, we did this Guilty Gear game using Softimage. And then I said, well, since Softimage is no more, I should try to look for another software that can, at least come to the 10% of what we did in Softimage regarding to shading and other amazing things, simulations and stuff. And yeah, that was basically the start of my quest. And one day I came across one of my friends from work, and he said, "Why don't you try Blender?" And he started to explain to me how Blender works. This is back at 269, I think it was. Yeah, and I told him, Blender is not ready. It's not ready. The tools are too primitive. The tools are too basic. You don't even have functions for vector velocities and stuff. Advanced things that I will not talk about right now. Um, but I kept an eye on Blender because some of the artists in Japan were doing just amazing things with such limited tools. And I said, you know what? If Blender somehow could change the user interface, the tools that they have, make it more accessible, make it more friendly to understand from a visual perspective, then I will switch to Blender. So he started to, telling me how to do things that I already knew how to do, but he was just showing me where to push the buttons, where the names of the buttons were, and that's how I got into Blender. This is back on 278 where I definitely did the jump. I previously tried Modo and some other softwares, but I stayed with Blender because at that time they announced what they will be doing in the future for the 2.8 release. So I got my first gigs on Blender, and then I said, maybe this is something that can be pushed even further for the industry. Because I really like the liquid simulations and the fluid simulation for smoke at the time. This is 279, by the way. And when the time arrived, I was ready to, become a Blender instructor. So I applied to the Blender Institute. This is back in 2018, 2019, I think. I don't remember quite well. And I held that training position for 1 year before they deprecated the title. Not that I actually went to Amsterdam, but I was, working on my field, training other professional friends here in my country, and they really saw that Blender had potential. This is the very beginnings of the Blender 2.8 series. So when Blender 2.8 came and Eevee appeared, then I said, this is it. This is where I should be staying, and that's how I became a Blender instructor. And also I started to put out courses, training. This channel went up because all of the artists really wanted to know how to do this kind of things that we were already doing in Softimage way back in the day. Is DAS Studio worth time? I know that the first Ruby season was animated in DAS. So if you really want to get into animation and you have the possibility to pay for DAS because I know it's a little bit high for the standard license. Yeah, you can definitely do renders, animation, but if you would ask for my professional recommendation, I would say go to iClone. iClone has all of the tools that you need in 2023. They are even working on a, well, I shouldn't say this. Anyways, I'm just going to say that their add-ons for facial expression, facial captures, retargeting, editing timelines, and all of that is well worth it for people who really want to, create stuff ready to go. Either if it's going to be for a game engine or for a series of animation, I definitely recommend iClone as a professional solution for entry-level animators. Okay, yeah, you have to learn a lot of things, but once you do that, um, everything is just smooth ride. And they have a lot of amazing tools to customize your characters, and that's why I recommend it. It's a complete solution. I really like the way they're handling their stuff. What's your PC performances? Okay, right now, um, I had to switch from a 1080 GTX card to a 3060 RTX card because of some other realistic shaders I was trying. But if you want to produce like anime content like this, you don't need that much power. You can do this on a laptop if you want. Uh, Creating the model, texturing the model, and even opening Unreal Engine 5. I don't know if a laptop from 2019 could open Unreal Engine 5.2. But if you have a strong laptop and you can open Unreal Engine 5.2, I think that's another reason why there's a lot of people who uses Unity, because Unity is so much lighter to open. So yeah, basically you don't need that much power if you're working with NPR stuff. Alright, let's continue with this because I already did too much story time. This is one thing I really don't like about Blender. Blender tries this algorithm. By the way, just this morning, the UV unpacking algorithm was changed. Um, I should not say algorithm, I should say functions. They were changed, so we're not gonna get this anymore. We're going to get like kind of max dust, like it opens up your hand like 1 2 3, and then the fourth it's stuck to this frontal side to the other side, and then you have your thumb again. This is where your hand divides itself. This is front, this is back. It opens it vertically, so fine, but Blender does not do that. I don't know why. 3D Code does this also, but I just have to be patient. This is what I was mentioning before. This is a relaxing tool. I'm going to be using it to relax these areas here for the UVs. This is really important if you want to texture. Sorry. Okay. Just a little bit because those areas are really tight. Let's just relax this. I wish there could be proportional editing, but to scale stuff. Let me see if I can. Maybe I can experiment something here. I don't think it's gonna work, but let's just call it to see what it. Oh yeah, it does. It does. Kind of does. Um, Not really. I want to straighten this up so I can continue to paint this. Okay, this is what I was talking about. So Max does this automatically, automagically. I don't know why Blender is not able to do this. Okay, so there we go. Now let's relax this. Relax, 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 relax. we're trying to get these lines as horizontally as we can without distorting too much the texture itself. Okay, I'll leave it like that because I don't want to waste more time. You guys have been amazing, and I need to finish the stream. This is already, live, so people can see that I really do this stuff. It takes a lot of time. That's why I have not been posting too much, because I've been working on this project and it's been a long time to finish it because I really want to send this to Unreal Engine as soon as I can. So let's go back to UV and then unpin. Well, I need to select whatever thing I had selected first before unpinning it. So Alt P unpins it. If I select the island mode, select this one, Alt P, and then unpins it. And from there, we can just organize this into the rest of the UV map. How the rest of the UV map looks, let me just show you. And with that, we'll finish the stream. So yeah, long story short, I really love Blender. I think Geometry Nodes is breaking the industry right now, in the sense of that we can finally do procedural things to a great professional level. I know a lot of artists that really push the tool to the limits, and that's great. Channels like Arendale's, by the way, if you have not checked out his courses on Geometry Nodes, do so, because he really takes the time and the mentality behind of it to explain it all. Also, if you're new into Geometry Nodes, I really recommend to subscribe at least for a month to Blender Studio, just so you get all of the insights of why Blender works with Geometry Nodes the way it works. And it's really fantastic, to understand core concepts so that you can apply them later on into your own creations. You will not get it at first. I'm calling it now. There are some concepts that you really need to grasp first before jumping entirely into Geometry Nodes. So I really recommend that you do your homework, study for 2 or 3 weeks with them, with Blender Studio, and from there, go and check out all of the other YouTube channels that talk about Geometry Nodes, because it is really worth the while. You really get amazing results. I'll be publishing soon enough the 5th section for the stylized shaders in Blender from Wingfox. And in that section, I'm going to be adding a Geometry Nodes section, so that you can also use it for NPR stuff. That's very important because it will show you like the basics to understand how Geometry Nodes work and how you can use them to your advantage. Why did I decide to do that? Because I see that a lot of artists do not have the math mentality to it, and that really scares us all. But I found out that it's because some of the things that are explained through the math nodes or through the functions that they have are not related to basic core concepts in 3D. You really need to understand 3D in order for you to use Geometry Nodes. It's not that really difficult. So I plan to do a very brief introductory section and then go into practical examples so that you can know how to read, at least how to read Geometry Nodes. By the way, I did not do this before because Blender was in a lot of changes, and it was really difficult to put something together that maybe later in time would change. That's exactly what happened, and right now that the Blender Institute finally has settled with Geometry Nodes, right now we're also in beta for the simulation nodes. it's going to be a fantastic time to create stuff in Blender. So yeah, that's my recommendation, and this is a character. So thank you very much for coming into our stream, and I hope to see you in the next video. If you have any questions, please type them in the text section, in the comment section below. Alright, catch you later. Bye bye.